Have you ever felt like you don't fit in a space and so you try and do it the way that everyone else does and then that overwhelms you and so you end up not doing it? Hi. Welcome back to this, whatever this is, because that is where I have been with creating in this space because I feel like I don't fit how people normally do podcasts or how people normally do YouTube. And I have never fit anywhere, so I don't know why I was trying to make myself fit in the mold. And if you're that type of person that doesn't want to do things the way everyone else does, welcome. Welcome to being my best friend because that is where I'm at right now. I have gone back and forth on my podcast and my YouTube channel in trying to figure out how I do this in a way that feels good for me and doesn't exhaust me. And what I found is that if I spend any amount of time trying to plan, I just don't even show up here. And that might seem wild to some people, but I am so spontaneous brained in my comedic nature that it is almost better if I just improv it. Sometimes writing things down is really good, and I love a structured moment. I think this is why I'm so chaotic because I am a second born type A. And those two entities, they struggle inside of me a lot, which is great for everyone because then we just get to see the chaos that is me making things. So welcome to this, whatever this is. I have struggled with naming this. I've struggled with trying to figure out what this space is going to be, and I have just decided to do what feels the best for me, which is I want to show up to a space where I can feel safe to do it the way that I feel like it needs to be done. So we're going to carve a new path together. We're going to carve a new path together. I know what it's like to not fit in. I know what it's like to not be invited to the table. I know what it's like to have people underestimate me. So here I am in this space that I will struggle with imposter syndrome and struggle through it all. But one thing that I do know is that the more that we show up to our spaces authentically and just be us and not try and fit into somebody else's idea of who we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to become, there is such magic there. So, welcome to this magic. I have even thought about calling this That Podcast because I have created so many spoof episodes of influencers creating podcasts, which, by the way, I love influencers. The way that I will sit and watch an influencer, every haul, every unboxing, like I don't even care if they're like unboxing like toilet paper from Amazon. I am on the edge of my seat. Okay? Let me just say the respect for influencers is so high. I love them. I love the world of influencing that has created these like little things that influencers do, which is why like I love incorporating them into my videos, like the hand behind an object. Like in what other world are we doing that? We're not. It's just in the influencer world, and I just think it's so cool. Like I just love it. And some people would call me an influencer. I feel like I resonate more with a content creator just because I'm writing skits and coming at things from a different angle. But gosh, like I just think it's so fun to watch other people. I really do. Like these girlies that show up in their space. I live for it. I live for their everything, their energy, their passion for, Ziploc bags that they just bought on Amazon. Like, have you ever seen somebody so excited about just receiving a box full of essentials than an influencer? I mean, come on, come on. Where else can we find that magic? It's nowhere else. It's nowhere else. So I just really appreciate all the influencers, guys, girls. Like I'm very grateful that I get to be a part of a time where I get to watch just everyone be literally obsessed. I'm so excited. I get to watch everyone be literally obsessed, and I'm literally obsessed as well. Which, speaking of, becoming a content creator was definitely not something that I saw on my bingo card of life. Although I used to joke around that I had 4 fans and I was creating videos for those 4 fans because I've been creating videos for a very, very long time. And as somebody who knows what it's like to be playful and creating and absolutely feel like nobody cares, I just want to say that if you have a desire to do something, just do it. Just do it. And that concludes this podcast. So thank you so no. Like I feel like I wish that I could go back in time in a little Julie time machine and just go, hey, I know that you're making these videos and like nobody's watching them and it makes you feel like you're not funny, but you're having a great time. So just keep doing it because along the way you're going to find your people. And I'm just so grateful. Oh my God, I'm so grateful. I can't talk about it because I'm going to start crying. I did see somebody left me a comment that I just saw recently, and they said, I can't believe you haven't been found yet, and that you have not been like taken off to Hollywood or like have your own show or something like that. And they just essentially were saying like, I can't believe you haven't been discovered yet. And my response to her today was, I have been discovered. I've been discovered by you, and that is just like the greatest privilege ever. And I've always told you in my stories and in my content that we're doing this together, and that whatever this becomes, I just hope that it remains a space where we all feel included. Like, there are these huge pieces of my life that have shaped the me now, and this huge part was I was involved in this larger community before that I had some notoriety in. Like, people knew who I was in the Facebook groups and stuff, and we would do conferences, but there were these very famous people in that world, and I remember being in the same room with them, and some of them felt so entitled to the attention that they got in that space. And that's the best way I could describe it. The entitlement of attention. And what that looked like to the people around them was that they wouldn't interact with people that didn't have the same level of attention that they did. And I remember feeling so small standing next to them and watching them sit in their special like VIP seats, like way away from everyone, and standing there in the hallway as they walked by and their celebrity in that industry. And I remember feeling this sense of like shame and this sense of like smallness. And I just remember thinking like, I never want to make anybody feel small. And I feel like people that have attention are just that. They're people that have attention. They are people that experience the same things as everyone else, and that attention is something that they're responsible for, and it is something that they are gifted with. And I feel like it does say a lot about somebody of what they choose to do with that attention. And so I feel like for me, in the glorious love and support that I have gotten from my fans and from these different social media platforms, like, I want to use my attention to bring light and joy and kindness and love and encouragement and support. And I feel like if I can make somebody's day by just giving language or giving a ridiculous way to see something that is very stressful, I feel like that's what I want to do every day of my life. And I work to do that in my own life because I've been through some things, and I feel like these little minor inconveniences that happen. Like this woman the other day, I'm standing at the doctor's office checking in, and this woman who needs to check in is standing behind me, and she decides that she doesn't want to wait for me to check in. So she just scoots right next to me and is like, excuse me. And like essentially like puts herself in front of me and asks to check in to the receptionist is literally right there checking me in. And she's like, hi, yeah, my appointment's right now. I need to check in right now. And the guy behind the counter is like, hey, like she's checking in, like, can you wait? And she's like, no, I need to check in right now. Like my appointment time is right now. And I'm just sitting there and I'm just like, I'm on the Truman Show. Like this has got to be the Truman Show. And I just have found like it's so much more fun to find the joy in it than to get angry and cry. Like sometimes anger and crying is great, but not at people. I mean, I guess at times that would be the great way to do it, is if somebody needs to be talked to in a way that is less than delightful, that's okay, and that's totally appropriate at times. But in the times where it's just peopling so hard, I just choose to laugh so that I don't cry, because I'm like, what is going on? What is happening in this moment? And I have found like the ridiculousness of life that we all deal with is something that brings us all together. And that's one thing I love about comedy. Oh my God. I love that comedy can bring people together, and it can give people language and give people a brief glimmer of hope and joy in a moment that might feel frustrating. My favorite thing is when I hear from you about the dentist videos, that in the middle of your dental procedures, it's my face that you're seeing, and it's giving you a little bit more joy in the middle of a really terrible situation. And I could go on and on and on and on about my dental anxiety. And I have talked to you about this in my stories because it is so real. Dental anxiety is one of the worst anxieties. Okay. There's just something about this sensory nightmare of, of tools going towards your face that you've never seen in your life, that you've never heard of in your life. And that sound, each one makes a special sound of nightmare right next to your face. So you have that sensory nightmare, and then just water, just tsunami water washing over you at every angle. And then the dentist is saying names of apparatuses that sound like you're in a horror film. Like, no, I don't want the Tearjerker 5000 anywhere near my face at all, much less my sensitive gums that your hygienist just made bleed all over. I would rather not the migraine maker come and be shoved inside my mouth at any time. Actually, zero times I want that to happen. So I feel like us having this shared experience of that and giving a different visual, a different perspective, if you will, of, yes, is it horrific? Yes. Is it helpful? That's what they say. They're telling us that they need to poke inside of the sensitive parts of our gums as much as possible, for as long as possible. Actually, they would like to do it all of it, all the gums being poked, and every single plaque that has ever plaqued in the history of plaquing, they will stay in there. I don't think I've ever seen a person more committed to their job than a dental hygienist. I feel like they really, really get in there. And once they start, you hope they're going to stop at some point. After 4.5 hours, you're wondering, what exactly are they doing? Because they have scraped and scratched every single bit of your mouth that exists. And they really do double down on the sensitive parts. I don't think I've ever not had a moment where they haven't stayed, right? You know what I'm talking about? Like, right, that spot, that's the worst spot. Whatever spot's the worst spot, that's actually the spot that they love. They're like bloodhound dogs. Like, they can look in your mouth and go, that's the one, and that's one. And they do sit there for a minute, and they are helping, because that's what they're telling us. And I have had this thought many years, because this concept of dentistry and really kind of diving deep in my head of how did this begin, because I'm not going to Google it and look. I really did begin that at age 10. I remember looking up at the ceiling tiles. I think there were about 7 ceiling tiles that I just recounted over and over again. And I thought, golly, could there be another way? Could there be another way than having hooks jabbed into our gums? And I have learned in 37 years of living and going to the dentist regularly, there isn't any other way, actually. This is the only way. And that's one of the reasons that I create, is to help us get through these difficult times of discomfort and minor inconveniences. My favorite thing about creating with you is that you give me amazing, brilliant ideas for me to create with. And that's one of the things I love to do, is replying to your comments and creating videos that you inspired, which I think the dentist video was one of those. Mammograms, self-checkouts, postal workers. We have a lot of workers, lots of workers here in the States that are upset. A lot of them are upset, and I don't blame them. I mean, there's people out here peopling hard. We've got Little Miss interrupts the check-in process and just cuts in front of people. We have lots of women with entitlement and wild haircuts out here demanding managers. And so I appreciate the fact that working with people is a struggle. And I too have worked with people. But one of my favorite things is just watching. I like to watch people. I think it's really interesting and fascinating watching people's facial expressions and trying to figure out what's happening? What is happening right now? What in the world? I don't think I've ever seen a grumpier worker than probably the post office. The post office is one that jumps out to me. And where I don't get it, I kind of do. They have to ask you the same questions over and over again, and I'm sure that every day they're fighting for their lives to keep just rage inside of them. I can see it on their face. They just look upset. And it's probably because they're asking us, is there anything liquid, perishable, hazardous, or I can't remember the other one. But last time I was there, they asked, and my response to them is always a trauma response, was just freeze. Because my brain's immediately like, did you put something hazardous in there? And that's that's where I start struggling. The same brain that asked me, did I put something in my package that I'm mailing to somebody and is it hazardous, is the same brain that says, is there a weapon in your bag that accidentally got there when you're at the airport? And I think that part of my brain will just call anxiety, because there's no other way to explain why, and when somebody asks me, is there something hazardous in the package that I lovingly wrapped because I'm extra and put confetti in and tied a bow and literally sprayed it with perfume. They're asking me if I put something hazardous in there, and I'm trying to think, is a notebook hazardous? And it feels like all time and space has paused at that point. It feels like confrontation. So I'm not blaming the postal worker for being grumpy. I actually think it's probably partly my fault. So I'm sorry for everyone, because I probably have been that person that has caused them just to be one tiny moment of minor inconvenience away from melting down. And I just hope I'm not that person that causes it. I just hope that I'm able to get my freeze response better before I get there. One of the things about checking in anywhere with anxiety, particularly with traveling, is that every single travel person that I have been around in terms of like security is different. I feel like half of them are like Dwight Schrute and half of them are like Kelly Kapoor, and you never really know what energy they're going to be until you get there. Like I went and flew somewhere, and like I felt like I was already like a complete and total villain. I should be arrested just standing there. I wasn't even doing, they're just standing there with my own belongings. I'm like, just here, take me in. Like, I didn't even do anything. Like, maybe I just left my jacket on a millisecond too long, or like I accidentally took my shoes off when I should have left them on. Like, I don't know. I was just like, I'm sorry, just take me. And then I went on a cruise, and cruises are its own level of extra because they don't want people bringing in alcoholic beverages. They don't want anybody doing, they want to make everybody safe, but they also have rules so that you make sure and spend money while you're there. So when I was going on a cruise recently, I had Kelly Kapoor, and I was like, hey, here's everything. Like, and she's like, okay. And just like go through, and it was totally fine. But then I have like Dwight Schrute at the airport. And then when I was coming back onto the boat from the cruise in another country, they were so Dwight Schrute. It was like Dwight Schrute times 20. And they wouldn't even let us bring like candy, like that we had bought at the port, like back on the ship. And so like we had to like stop and eat the candy. Like, so I feel like part of the struggle for me overthinking, am I doing something wrong? One is trauma, but two, also my experiences with so many Dwight Schrutes in security at any point. One of my most traumatic like plane security experiences when I actually got accused of yelling and being belligerent, which if you have ever been around me in my life, you've never been around me in my life, there's no yelling that ever comes out of my mouth. I am not a yeller. I don't even yell at my kids. Like, even in the most stressful moments with my children, go ahead, ask them, DM them, they fact check me. I'm just not a yeller. And so I was accused and almost got kicked out of an airport. And I think about this story all the time because it was so traumatizing to be accused of something that I wasn't doing. But I was doing a flight from Tampa to Las Vegas for a conference. And I had a jump seat, which is a buddy seat. So a friend of mine's husband worked at the airline, so I got a jump seat. And so with a jump seat, you don't actually get a seat. You have to wait until like to see if there's any seats opening. So this woman tells us, hey, we've got all these seats open on this flight. You guys are all going to get in. It was a traveling with a group of girls. Like, you've got all these, we've got tons of seats. Don't even worry about it. You're going to get on this plane. So I was like, great, awesome. So she brings us on the flight for our buddy seats. And then she realizes there's like no seats. And it was just like, oh my God, it was so stressful. So me and this other girl had to leave while the other group was able to get in. They were able to get seats. So we're stuck. We're stuck in this airport. And so I go up to the counter and I tell the receptionist at the airline, which another grumpy face. And again, it's not her fault. She's dealing with people, hardcore people, on her peopling, hardcore peopling. And I said, hey, listen, like, this was really awful experience. Like, it was so stressful that she promised us a seat and then now we're stuck here. And like, what can you do? Like, is there anything you can do to like make this right for us? Because like, we're stuck here now. And like, it just was not, it was so emotionally high and low of like this moment. And I was just really stressed out, but I was like so gentle. I was so gentle with this lady. And 10 minutes later, she's like, something we do. Go sit down. 10 minutes later, security comes and they say, this woman told us that you were screaming and belligerent and demanding. And I was just like, I immediately started to apologize. I'm like, what are you talking about? I wasn't doing anything. And I was so like, oh my God, I was so stressed out. Like, just this idea of me being like handcuffed and removed from the airport, being kicked out of the plane forever. And I'm like, I am so sorry. That is not what happened. Like, I'm so sorry that like this was a miscommunication. Like, I was mortified. I was mortified that that was the impression that I gave. And I think what it was that after I had talked to the receptionist, I think they went and talked to the original girl. And I think that she was trying to defend herself with her job of being like, no, that like she said, none of that happened. We didn't bring you on the plane. We didn't do any of that. Everything you're saying is a lie. And we're just like sitting there. And I felt really small. And I realized something in that moment that I'll never forget. And it's that I had this expectation that the girlies with me would definitely like stand up for me and be like, no, we saw it happen. Like, she didn't do any of that. But I think they were also in freeze mode. And I was like, oh man, God, that was a lesson. That was definitely a lesson. So now I just, I just watch. I just watch and learn. And you know what? I'm in a different place. I think that was like 10 years ago or something. But I just felt so bad. And I'm like, I can't with feeling like I am in trouble. So I'm working on that. It's fine. We're in therapy. We're going to get through it. It's totally fine. But if you've ever been in a position where you have felt really small, hi, we have been there together. And I'm so glad that I have this space where I can give everybody a place to not feel small and to like make mistakes and to learn and grow. And you know, I had started a podcast a couple years ago, and one of the reasons why I started it was because I was surrounded by all these women that were online and making it seem like that they had their life completely together, that their life was absolutely perfect. And along the way, I learned that there were more airport stories about different things that had happened and were happening in their life that they just didn't feel comfortable to say. And so it felt more comfortable for them to present this very polished image about how they had their life together. And that was really hard for me because at the time that I was around these women that I thought would be lifelong friends that I'm not friends with anymore, I felt like I am so different. Like, how am I going through all these different struggles? How am I going through all these situations? How am I going through a situation where I'm at the airport and I'm being perceived in a way that's not me at all? And their lives are perfect and they have everything together. And I realized after a few years later and watching kind of what happened in their life and watching the things that they had been hiding and the things that they'd been lying about, I realized that we are all just in journey, and sometimes it feels better to not let people in on that space because it feels scary to be vulnerable. And so when I had originally created this podcast, I was creating it from a space of I don't ever want people to feel alone in their journey, to feel alone in having situations happen where they are misunderstood or something went down the way that they weren't expecting, or women showing up and trying their best, or people showing up and trying their best and they make a mistake. And I have always told my kids that it's not if you make a mistake, it's how you clean up the mess. Who you are as a person is not defined on if your life is perfect or if you're not going through anything. It's what do you do to pick up the pieces of yourself and clean up the mess of the connections that you have become disconnected with. And that is my ride or die saying, because I feel like there is so much presentation of people online. There's a presentation of image, there's a presentation of brand, and it doesn't give us space as people just to be and just to learn and give space to not have it all together and give space to not be perfect. So that I know is what you're going to see and hear here. You're also going to find comedic stories like this, and I'm really glad that I get to invite you into learning a little bit more about me. I realize in creating different characters, you guys have gotten to know me through my characters, but you might not actually get to know me through my characters. So this is a space to do that, and everything that I see and create here is going to be in line with comedy, because it's just how my brain thinks. I hear so much from you that you would love to sit with a day with me and just see and watch and hear. And I have a Patreon that has more behind the scenes of like character creation and how I come up with props and prop hunting in my garage, which is really fun. But a lot of what you see of what I've created online comes from me just playing and being super playful and just allowing myself the freedom to create and not worry about what people think. And so this is going to be more of that. So thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, like, it really means a lot to me to hear that you're here. I would so much rather create for you knowing that you're here than to not even know if you're watching or listening. So subscribe, like, and let me know more stories that you'd want to hear. I would love to share them with you. And yeah, leave a comment and we'll go from here. So thank you so much for listening. I love you guys so much, and we'll talk again soon. Okay.